All right, we are live.
Pull the agenda. Okay, so first thing we need to do is start with a roll call, right? It's 10:02 a.m. We are making sure that we have that. Can we go ahead and start the roll call?
Emily Dorn here.
Rebecca Tongsonoon here.
Barry Del here.
It also looks like we have Bobby Hempfling. Bobby,
Yep.
on that will.
Bobby's on mute.
Just want to make sure he's on.
Sorry, I was having technical difficulties with the video or the audio.
Great.
That's all right. So Bobby is here, so that gives us that's our quorum to get started. Okay, so now that we are all here and we have a quorum, I think we can move on to public comments. Given what we had last time, Amber and Ashley, I'm going to have a little timer set up for the 3 minutes, so I'd like to make sure we stick to that. But with that being said, I think we can move on to public comments.
And Barry, just to clarify, this section is for items that are not on the agenda.
Yes, you're stating that as a broad meeting item, right?
Anything that's not on the not listed on the agenda can be spoken about now, and later on when the item is called up, if they wish to speak to that item, they will be given that chance at that time. Yeah.
So do we have anyone in the public comment section like to speak about anything other than items that are already noted below in the agenda?
And if so, just signify by raising your hands. It looks like we don't have any hands raised, and Pat Sheehan just joined us for the record.
He's on mute.
Pat Sheehan here.
Pat, welcome.
Thank you.
All right. So we need a motion to close public comments, right? And move on to our consent agenda items.
No motion needed.
All right. So the first item up is discussion of possible action on the minutes from May 13, 2021 from our last meeting. And we had to move this one out due to scheduling and quorum conflicts. So this is just us ratifying the previous minutes. We'll need a motion for that though.
Motion to approve the minutes. This is Emily Dorn speaking.
I'll second that.
Okay. And then we need all in favor.
Aye, Pat Sheehan.
Barry Del aye.
Emily Dorn, aye. I think Rebecca and Bobby, you guys are on mute still.
Yep. We need, yep.
I suck. Hi, Bob.
Rebecca's still on mute, but that's all right.
All right. I
Okay.
had gone twice. Rebecca Tongsonoon, aye.
All right. So we are, our minutes have been approved, and now we can move on to the regular agenda item, which is actually the first one up. There'll be a few here, but is an overview of the discussion on citizen feedback regarding milk and cookies. Amber, do we want to go ahead and open this up to the public comment first? I mean, so just as a heads up for everyone, from I guess a public standpoint, any email or communication that's been sent to date regarding the RCDC hearing of the milk and cookies items on our agenda, any feedback that's been said has been sent to us. I think it's all included in the packet as well. So any member of RCDC and council have gotten that, and I think you can safely assume that we've all read through the items, which I think we've had in a very positive way, a lot of feedback, both for and against, but the community is definitely engaged on this topic. So I think that's a good sign of the the strength and vitality of the community when it becomes items that are very important to them. So but with that, I'd like to open it up. I think sure if there's anyone that'd like to speak, I just give further comments for the record here on the regular agenda item of milk and cookies. So this is a chance where if you came for this part, you would have a chance to speak about it.
Barry, Alec Robinson has his hand raised.
Alec.
Hey, Barry. Hey, thanks guys for recognizing me. Hey, one of the things I wanted to mention about the feedback, because I read through all those. One thing that I think we should all keep in mind is that even the people for this idea, if you presented this as like another alternative on Bee Cave Road, there are probably quite a few of those people that would also be for it on Bee Cave Road. And I just wanted to make that comment. This isn't like an all or nothing kind of thing. It doesn't have to be. And I think a lot of the people that may be supportive of this would also be supportive of it on Bee Cave Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Alec.
Barry, Brian Ryder has his hand raised.
Okay, go ahead, Brian. Let's see him on here. Hold on.
Do you want to, my
there you are.
comments will more have to do with the letter of intent and issues there, but I'm obviously opposed. I've spoken against this at the Park Commission and I'm speaking against it again now. I'll save my details for item 4 if you're going to treat that separately, Barry. If you're going to consolidate the two and it's time to talk about the letter of intent, let me know that and I'll talk about that now.
I think so. Just to help provide more context with your feedback, we're going to keep that as a separate item. So item 4 will be the letter of intent discussion. This is more of the general feedback that you've seen into some of the agenda packets. So people just, so we'll cover that next if that's all right.
It's fine. Thank you.
Barry, Phil McDuffie has his hand raised.
Okay. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Phil.
Thank you guys for recognizing me. I would like to iterate on behalf of the Park Commission that I'm the chair of, that the Park Commission unanimously voted to recommend that the City Council deny milk and cookies and tiny boxwoods in the park. I would like to reiterate that would love to have tiny boxwoods and milk and cookies up in our commercial corridor. I just think it's totally inappropriate to have it in the park, especially across from current residential. That's when it's been cited in the past that this is a concession and concessions go in parks. Those are not the same situation. It's not parks that have residential properties right across the street and main thoroughfares through residential neighborhoods. So that's all I have to say on that. There's a lot of other reasons not to do it as well, such as rodents and that type of thing. But if it gets to that point, then we can start worrying about those things at that time.
Okay, thank you, Phil. Hey, looks like Becky Kittleman joined as well, Amber.
He did. Laurie Mills has her hand raised.
Go ahead, Laurie.
Hi, thank you all for the opportunity to speak. I too wanted to reiterate what Alec said earlier, as well as Phil. It really doesn't have anything to do with the business itself. It's more about commercial in the park and making sure that we don't bring that in when we have commercial space available in the appropriate places. I do agree with Alec in the fact that I do think people would love to have milk and cookies in the commercial space. And I don't think it's an all or nothing. I think there's other opportunities, and putting it in the park is what I am opposed to. Putting any commercial entity, retail, into our park and into our city where we are already having traffic issues. I just think that exacerbates the issue on so many levels, and I want to just go on record as opposing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate what y'all do.
Barry, Diana Marie,
Yep.
her hand raised.
Yep. Go ahead, Diana. You're on mute, by the way. You have to unmute yourself if you're trying to speak.
Mm.
And if you're trying to talk, we can't hear you.
Is that any better?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. My
Got you
screen
now.
was completely frozen. I couldn't get there.
You're good.
I'm Diana Marie Wallace. I live at 2603 Rollingwood Drive. And I am extremely opposed to the idea of commercialization of our very limited green space. Going back to the old song, they paved paradise and put up a parking lot. I live on Rollingwood Drive, and those of you who don't realize that Rollingwood Drive is incredibly busy, I live on the hill, and I have actually offered the police my driveway to sit in to catch the speeders that are going through and the excess traffic. So it's just not a good idea on any level. And the idea that kids walking or biking to the park are going to be safer on Rollingwood Drive. Well, they'll be safer on Rollingwood Drive than BK Road, but that's like a choice between lions and tigers and bears. It's really better to find another alternative. Would love to do milk and cookies. Think it's a fantastic idea. Does not belong in the park. Just no way. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Anybody else would like to speak to this item? Laurie, Diana, Brian, y'all's hands are still raised, but I think it's left over from this agenda item. There is someone calling in. Ashley, remind me what they need to do.
Star 9, isn't it?
Yeah, star 9 to raise your hand. I believe star 6 to unmute if you are calling in and would like to speak.
Laura has her hand raised. Go ahead, Laura.
Sorry, I was driving. Apologize.
Hopefully you're pulled over now.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here, just sitting in the driveway. Sorry, guys. So yes, I agree with Alec, Phil, and Diana. We live on Park Hills Drive, as I mentioned. And, you know, it's interesting. I've listened to both of the prior meetings about this that I could find on the website. Looked at the locations of where the current milk and cookies are. While they are potentially bordering neighborhoods, they are not in a park. And they're actually much closer to, will look to be busy streets. As a matter of fact, I think it was David Smith who even talked about how, you know, it's kind of busy over in sort of the Brikerwood area off Kirby Lane. So again, I just agree with them. It's not about milk and cookies. It's why do we go to a commercial building, even if we're going to try as an experiment? Something like the food market or the market that we're going to have, we're doing that on a limited basis to try it. You know, if we're even going to entertain trying it, start with something temporary, like a food truck, before we go through this entire process with a permanent building in our neighborhood. And while I understand some parents think, and I do have a child as well, that it would be safer to go there. I do concur with Diana that we already have issues. I mean, why is there at this point, we should be almost having pads that slow people down on Rollingwood. Rollingwood is not, I'm worried about kids already that are out there biking on some of our streets. And I would love to see money and initiatives that go towards safer sidewalks and fixing the parking problem we have from overflow of anything at the park. So anyway, just wanted to offer that perspective that, again, appreciate what you guys do. I know you're trying to find ways to raise money for the city. I just don't think as an opening move, this is really the best idea. Thank you.
I think that were excellent points.
Laura, can I get your last name for the record?
Of course, it's Laura Richardson, 3205 Park Hills.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to? Ann Harrington.
Hi. Hi. I live at 106 Christie. I'm sorry, I just joined the meeting, so I may reiterate some points I assume we're talking about the milk and cookies issue right now.
Yes.
People have already said. I have a couple questions about that. I see this neighborhood as, one of the reasons we moved here is it's kind of unassuming nature. And while not opposed to change and improvements that happen, I feel like going from a residential zone and a public park, to a commercial zone is a huge change. That is a slippery slope. And some of the questions I have around it are, what will happen if another enterprise down the road wants to come in? Have people thought about the rodent situation that will happen with a food service entity right there? And we already have issues with those Norwegian tree rats around the neighborhood. What about the people that live right across the street? What does it do to their property value? How would everybody else feel if a commercial enterprise went in right next door to them? I know reading the things, the proposal, it's meant to be sort of a walk-up neighborhood type feel, which sounds really lovely on the surface. And I'm sure my kids would be ecstatic to drive up there. But all the milk and cookies I've been to are in commercial areas. So on the edges of neighborhoods, perhaps, and they have long, long lines of people walking up. They're very popular because they're delicious. Are we good with having that much commercial traffic right in the heart of our neighborhood? And I guess, yeah, I don't know. I feel the big point of, I don't know what it does to the neighbors that live right across the street and on Rollingwood Drive. I think that's a really tricky, like sticky wicket, as they say. So are there any, have any of those questions been fully addressed?
Well, I can speak to some of those. So, I mean, or
Okay.
most of them. So as we've gone through now, I think this is our third kind of public comments or agenda items that we've gone through here recently. We brought it up in the past, but for more recent purposes, the traffic items has been a valid concern. You'll see later in our agenda item, we actually have a motion or a resolution to look at funding a traffic study, both for something entity like this, but in general, the city and how traffic moves both from a commercial and residential standpoint. So what in that piece that would identify what an increase in traffic would look like, and then how we would handle just traffic in the neighborhood in general. So that's one item that I think is a valid concern, because like you said, it's supposed to be walk up, but inevitably any commercial entity has driving traffic. I mean, that people have to get there somehow. As far as what it does to the neighbors around, obviously that's something that we're taking into account as we even, just still keep these discussions going. We've taken a lot of community feedback about that, both from direct neighbors and people who don't even live on Rollingwood Drive. So that's something as a committee, we're very cognizant of. The rodent one, I think again, that goes, I don't want to say it goes without saying, but that's something that's innate that could be, potentially happen with any type of commercial business that serves food. So yes, and then you had one more item that I wanted to address, but I've one more point I think you brought up.
I think just like the slippery slope and like what happens.
Yeah, so the
why
slippery
milk
slope
and
piece.
cookies? Why not another commercial enterprise? Why not, like, what happens when if they want to sell it to somebody else, or we start this process and then can you walk it back if it's
Yeah,
like,
so that, I mean, that there's two sides, there's two pieces to that. There's the first of like, if there's another, I mean, this is just an outlandish example, but say there's like there's a, I don't know, a McDonald's wants to go in there, right? Like, and they want to be part of the park too, right? Like, we would go through, I mean, inherently we would go through this same process if we wanted to further commercialize the park of having something else there at some point. I mean, so there's this whole mechanism that's in place for community feedback. And then, we would go through this exact process again with another group. It's not like a carte blanche. So that everyone can just come through and you can just put whatever you want up. So everything would be treated as more of a one-off piece. And then, yeah, so I think that answers
Will you have
those
somebody
questions.
evaluating? I'm not to harp on the rodent thing, but I just know from talking with people with like with food trucks and stuff that they find, because I think it was mentioned that they would be trapping. And then I was just thinking, well, how does that play out? Like, who's checking the traps? Is it the teenage cookie server that's showing up, or like, how does that work? And then people I've talked to in the food industry say that doesn't really work so well, especially in places where you don't have like a concrete slab that you can easily wash down, which you've got all the decomposed granite and stuff around there and yard where food particles are going to get. So they put poison out, but then we have dogs and kids that are around there. So yeah, I don't know. Personally, I feel like
3 minutes is
a host of worms.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think Pat was saying actually the 3 minutes was up. Some of that actually, Pat, was my
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to get on with this, Gary, and have a vote. And I move that we vote on this, and my recommendation is we all vote no and get on with it. This isn't going to happen, so we're wasting our time. I make a motion.
Amber, can we make a motion when we're still getting feedback? Well,
the feedback, we've got hundreds of letters against it.
Can I second that motion?
So we're still on item 3.
Yep.
That's just an overview and discussion.
Yep.
And so Barry, it's up to you if you want to stop discussion on number 3 and take up item 4.
Yeah, I think we're good with stopping discussion on 3 and moving to 4, discussing the possible action on the revised letter of intent. I do want to provide an update of where we are because we did do work on that. So I would like to at least provide that piece as well. I mean, we do have a standing motion to, like, I guess, essentially kill this before we send it off or not send it off.
Yeah.
I'd like to walk through the letter of intent so we can understand that as well. And I know that there's a couple people that want to speak to that as well.
I think it's a waste of time, Barry.
Well, I don't.
Barry,
I think
it's a waste of time. The letter of intent is not going to happen. I think we need to vote on it and get on with our job. Our job's not to commercialize the park. So let's get the vote out and move on to the next item.
I disagree. I think we should talk about it, at least talk about the letter of intent.
I agree.
Yeah, and I think we should talk about it. Sorry, I think we should talk about it. Talk about the letter of intent. I've seen comments back and forth on it, and pro and con. And if you look at RCDC's role, our job is to look for ways to help grow the economy and the physical well-being of the city.
Well, David, the RCDC can give a grant to encourage Muffin Cookies to open a commercial store in the commercial district. We don't have any authority to change the zoning in the park or to accept businesses into the park. It's going to be at the city council level and not at our level. And spending time on this over and over and over is not productive.
Except for the fact that, Pat, with all due respect, you have 4 of the members who want to discuss this and want to take a look at it.
Well, I think they should be reading the emails and looking what the park commission did and voted no against it. You aren't going to do it. You're wasting your time. If y'all want to waste your time, go ahead.
Well, I'm kind of tired of, I have a problem with city government every time someone disagrees, thrown in the towel, because that's a surefire way never to get anything done, never make any progress in the.
Well, this isn't progress.
Well, but anyways, Pat, we disagree. And, if you want to vote on your motion, that's up to Barry's chair.
I move that we vote on it so we know.
I second the motion.
Get on with it. Got a second.
Well, now that you have a motion and a second, it's the commission can discuss. And then Barry, you can decide when you want to call the question.
How much do we have everyone from RCDC here right now? Do we have everyone on? I'm at Amber. I can't keep track of like their little I have like 30 boxes on here. So,
I believe we do now have every member.
so the first thing before we move into this next part, I just want to make sure that we all remain civil in this. We are all on a committee that work together. I know this is a heated and passionate discussion on both sides. So I just want to make sure that we remind each other of that. We have to work together on a lot of different items, regardless of topics. As far as the motion, you know what, I think there are some things in the letter of intent that I wanted to further discuss. Particularly, you know, there was an item brought up earlier, and this is just, so let's have a discussion about it. I think we can combine these two, but this will just be more insights. There was an item brought up by one of the public comments earlier about, you know, what does dipping your toe in this look like? Maybe it's not in the park, but maybe there's some way that we can provide, you know, a commercial aspect to this. Is it a food truck? Is it something else? I mean, there's a lot of ways to do this, and having this discussion, either Milk and Cookies or, you know, any other retailer, is part of us getting to a solution. So that's one of the reasons why it's important for us to go through this process, to find out ways where we can be creative to help give revenue to the city, to the park, and further the kind of the charter of RCDC. So Pat, with that being said, I think us discussing item 4 and working through both the positive and negatives of the letter of intent, if this fails, that's fine, but it'll help at least set us on a path of being understanding of the community and also being creative of how we can solve a lot of the issues. I don't think it's a waste of time to have a commercial discussion. Maybe Milk and Cookies is a waste of time. Time will tell, but this helps us get to a solution. We can't, if we do nothing, we'll 6 months from now, the park commission or the park and the city are going to be in the same spot. So we have to, I think this brings up dialogue and ideas to help solve some of the problems. And so that's why I don't think it's a waste of time, regardless, again, if it's Milk and Cookies or a Chevron station, I don't care. Nothing against Chevron, but that's kind of why I wanted us to take us through the letter of intent, and then, you know, then we are open to having a vote or tabling it or whatever. But I do like getting the community feedback and our own feedback in a way that is productive.
Well, and I think that the community feedback has been both for and against. So to claim that it's all against really isn't accurate. We've seen a lot, just as many people for as against.
So Amber, just to be clear, can we move? So we have a motion and a second. That
And
means we can discuss it. I'd
the
like to get
commission
to,
can discuss. So you can ask your commission members to speak to the item and share their thoughts about the item.
with it. So that prevents us from moving to item 4. Is that correct?
You called up item 4. There's a motion to disapprove it in a second. And so now it's time for the commission to discuss.
Okay.
And when you've heard from all your commission members, then you can call the question and take a vote.
Okay, so that was kind of my comment and spiel about what I feel about Milk and Cookies in this entire like democratic process, if you will. So I'd like to, at this point now, I think there's other members here. Let's have the discussion then, and then from there we'll decide what to do. So whoever wants to go next is open to go next.
We also have members of the public with their hands up as well, if we can call on them during this also.
Okay, I'd like, so if we're gonna go in an order of this, because we've kind of jumped in between both the item 3 and 4, I'd like for the committee to go first, and then we can also have community feedback, and then from there, the RCDC can make a decision on how we proceed.
Shall I start?
Yes.
I just disagree. I agree with the neighbors that have said it, with the traffic and the lights and the rodents and not being commercially zoned. I'm against Milk and Cookies being there.
Okay, thank you, Becky.
This is Pat Sheehan. I'm against having Milk and Cookies, any commercial venture in our parks, period. We've got a commercial business zone. They can go there and we can give them a grant to encourage them if we so desire. And that's the appropriate place. Putting a commercial business in the middle of a residential area is not possible in this city. The park warranty deed does not talk about commercial activity. The city would have to change the zoning. You would probably have lawsuits over it. It's not worth doing. I'm totally against it.
Thank you, Pat. We got Bobby, Emily, and let's see who else is on.
Bobby
David?
Hempfling,
Yeah.
I'm for it. I think that it's a good opportunity for the community to have a gathering place within the city. Commercial district is not easily accessible from, for most people walking. So I'm for it. I do think it's appropriate. It's on.
Hey, Barry, this is Emily. So I also feel the same way as Bobby. I hear the other points and feedback from the community members. I think the other thing that you requested of us as community members is to actually give feedback on this letter of intent. And so I have a few points on that. I think that we should take a look at the rent and actually increasing that rent based upon the square footage that was so kindly given to us from the Milk and Cookies. So obviously, because at the end of the day, we're looking at how we can make money for the city. The other piece of this that after visiting with Lance a little bit about this concept is the payment formula. And that's just an issue that if we are to move this forward, based on what the committee votes, that would be something that we should talk through a little bit more. But I am supportive of this effort of continuing it on.
Leaves David.
Hang on. Did you call on me, Barry?
Yeah, I believe that. I think you're the last committee member who hasn't spoke.
Yeah,
and Rebecca.
Rebecca.
I think this really merits us taking a look at. I've think dug in a lot deeper than probably most people on this, and really tried to understand it and tried to separate a lot of the myth that's floating out there versus reality. I've read many times the deed transferring the park to the city. I've also read our zoning ordinances, and frankly, to say that it's a violation of the warranty deed is false, and to say that it's basically a violation of zoning's not true. This is something that the council has, but what is true is, we are advisory board. We advise the council. And from my perspective, I think this is something that is worth our while to take a serious look at. It's going to go directly next to an existing commercial use, which is the Western Hills Athletic Club. That is, currently park zone park as well. I think this is something we should work on. I feel like, one of the things about this is, unlike bigger cities, we don't have a big staff. Typically, staff would do all this, like in a city like Austin or any other city that has a large staff. Staff would do this, basically go back and forth with the potential vendor in the park, and come up with a proposal and queue it up for council. Because we don't have staff, part of the beauty of it is we're kind of doing this in real time. And so, the public has a benefit of this being open, transparent in terms of the terms, and the terms have changed. As terms I anticipate will change as we kind of dig in and focus on, what I feel are some, legitimate concerns that I think we need to take a hard look at, and that's, traffic and parking issues. And so I for one, think that this is something that we should pursue and talk with. We also have someone who's interested in going in there who really wants to be a true partner with the city on all levels. So I view this as a worthwhile effort.
think that leaves, oh, did she drop off? Oh, there you are, Rebecca. You're not dropped off.
Yeah, so from my perspective, it's really subjective to see all of this feedback. And so I've seen positive feedback. I've seen a lot of negative feedback. Obviously, it's very polarizing and people are very impassioned by whichever side that they're on. I totally understand the concern for additional traffic and for the pets and children and people walking around and the commercialization. It's a big change. This is not just, this is a big change, right? It's the first time that we're doing something like this. I feel like to go into a 5-year contract and build a building and have something this permanent is maybe too much for the community right now without knowing objectively exactly how many people are for this or against it. But I do feel like we shouldn't end the discussion on milk and cookies and something like a food truck or something that is that tests kind of the community and see what it's like to have something there with the additional traffic. If a food truck brings in that much more traffic, then obviously we can't even consider having, and it's dangerous, and we can't even consider having a permanent building that's there. I do know that there are, in Houston, when he did do this in Houston with milk and cookies there, the community there had similar responses. And the people who were against it, I've talked to a few people, again, this is very subjective, and they said that it didn't impact them like they thought it would. And now they're actually very happy it's there. So I just wonder if we, I don't like the idea of shoving this down everyone's throat when there's so much impassioned feedback against it. So I guess with the way that it's currently written, I would be against it, but I would want to continue the discussion to see what we could do to bring in a food truck or some other way to test out what it would be like to have something there.
So that's all of us. We haven't taken a vote yet. That's just general feedback. But I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more members that like to speak from the community, as far as I can tell from hand raise. Amber, I'll let you run through that. Brian, by the way, this is we're kind of now talking about the general terms. So this would be where you wanted to come back and speak.
Brian Ryder.
Okay, if I'm on.
Yep.
I'm still, of course, opposed to this strongly, but I'll address the letter of intent. And David, I know it's your idea to call this a concession contract. I've written lots of concession contracts and represented people operating sports arenas up to 15,000 attendance. A concessionaire contract is a contract for operation when there is an event going on. That means that the concession stand at the football stadium operates when there's a football game, and the baseball stadium when there's a baseball game. This is a 20-year deal, 7 days a week, 13 hours a day. It is not a concession contract, and I don't know what is achieved by trying to label it so. We still have the issue of unclarity, if you will, ambiguity about who's going to pay the taxes on the property. We have a triple net saying we will, a tax clause that doesn't say that the tenant is paying the taxes. The landlord is paying the insurance for the building. That's definitely not triple net, which is again a ambiguity here. We still have signage in a very ambiguous way about we're going to have illumination and signs on the building. What does that mean? It can mean any number of different things. We have the landlord obligated to maintain access and parking. What is the parking standard going to be? The most important thing to me is that we still have an open assignment clause. It doesn't read that way, but legally it means that. We could have this signed by Milk and Cookies and have Starbucks in there next week. It's called the two-step sign. The tenant assigns the lease to a new entity and sells the stock in the new entity, and poof, the assignment clause does not apply to block that. And my final comment is about the tenants council drafting the lease. That opens up the door to possibly an unequal negotiating knowledge. I would definitely hope that at least we would have knowledgeable landlord-tenant lawyers representing the landlord, the city here, if we were to have the first draft done by the tenant. So I have enough problems with the details. I have problems with the substance as a whole, but that's my input for the day.
Thank you, Brian.
Alec Robinson,
Alec, you're still on mute.
Cool. There you
Hey,
go.
thanks, Emily.
Mhm.
So I know, I've been on these a lot of these calls lately, and I'm sure you guys have heard my spiel before, but I think I recognize some new faces that haven't heard me. So I'm going to just kind of go through what I've been saying before, and I have a couple other comments at the end as well. So my name is Alec Robinson. I live at 4818 Rollingwood Drive. I have a wife. I have 2 daughters in the Eanes School District. We've been on, like I said, on a lot of these calls, and I'm totally opposed to this idea of putting Milk and Cookies in Rollingwood Park. I believe allotting the parkland, any of the parkland, to the development of a coffee shop is a grave mistake, and I'm against the commercial exploitation of our park for a few reasons. First, there is a grant that says park and recreational purposes, okay? In the grant, the deed for this park, building a coffee shop that operates 7 days a week, 13 hours a day, serving customers traveling from well beyond our local area is a great departure from the intent of the original grant. Second, and I've said this many times, we have existing designated, developed, and devoted commercial spaces available where this proposed business could locate and be successful. Specifically, there is an existing corridor on Bee Cave Road, and this business would be best suited there. The existing Milk and Cookies that I know of are located in commercial districts, and that includes the latest one with a Katy Freeway address, which is Interstate 10 in Memorial. If an Interstate 10 address is compatible with Milk and Cookies brand DNA, then a Bee Cave Road address is too. Third, this business will create a traffic and congestion nightmare, assuming 2 million in sales, which is similar to the performance of the Westview location. The proposed entity would handle 136,000 transactions a year at a $15 average ticket value. Milk and Cookies has stated that 70% of their transactions are from drive up. That means we could easily see up to 95,000 new vehicles per year along our neighborhood streets. If you look at the data from the recent park visitor study by RCDC, you'll understand that adding a Milk and Cookies to our park could easily more than double our pedestrian and vehicular traffic around the park. So I also wanted to show you guys real quickly, if I can get this up.
You'll need to be able to be allowed to present, but.
Oh, can I present something? Don't worry about it. Never mind. It went away. So I was going to show you guys a couple of screenshots I have of the Instagram page for Milk and Cookies, one of their stories. There's some interesting, fun activities it looks like that happen outside those things. It's just a popular place, and it's going to bring a lot of traffic into the neighborhood. But my main point here is what I want to say to you guys right now is, I just have a few questions about this whole process. Was there a public solicitation for this project? Was there a prospectus? If so, what was in it? How long did the public solicitation last? How many offers did we receive? What selection factors did you use in choosing the Milk and Cookies? There are families in this neighborhood whose lives and property will be negatively affected by this proposal. So I certainly expect the members of the RCDC are capable of providing satisfactory answers to these questions. Thank you.
I guess from my standpoint, I'll answer the kind of generally your question here. There was not a hidden agenda or something from bringing this on. And quite honestly, I don't know how it ended up. I've been in RCDC now for 2 years. I believe it was maybe not Milk and Cookies, but this concept has been something that's been proposed in some degree. And Pat may have more history here with this because you've been on RCDC longer than I have. But this kind of commercialization or ways to look for revenue has been something that RCDC's been going back and forth for quite some time. We didn't reach out, as far as I know, to Milk and Cookies. This was brought to us either by someone in the neighborhood or the owner himself. I'm not aware of any discussions that happened to we didn't seek out a bid for this, is what I'm saying. It wasn't something where we seeked out, hey, we have this 1,200 square foot box. we want a commercial entity there. It was something that was brought to us. We took it up, and as part of kind of our charter, we're looking at ways to raise additional revenue. It's something we wanted to bring to debate, and so that's what we're doing here now. Is this is the public comment time. This is the time to get feedback for us to better understand both the community pulse and is it something that makes sense? Does it not make sense? Where are the pitfalls? Where are the benefits, et cetera? So we're right now in the throes of what you've seen and been speaking to is kind of the throes of this whole public debate. So it's not, and all of our meetings and everything have been recorded. So everything that we've done to date has been above board and transparent. About this about as much as I do, I guess, is what I'm saying. There may be, and I mean, there's like obviously some communication we have to have, like, hey, Lance, can you send us a spec, like a mock-up of like what you're proposing, things like that, obviously, that aren't, part of everyday meetings. But I mean, that's more of a logistics thing than anything.
Hello, Barry.
Yes.
Barry, this is Jeff Butler. Can you hear me okay?
Yep. Yes, I can hear you. I don't know where you're on here speaking, but yes.
Thank you for taking my call. I live directly across the street from the park at 4822 Rollingwood Drive. I'm a neighbor of Alex Robinson. I agree with everything he said. Barry, I'm sure you remember the February 13th, 2020 meeting that is available on YouTube. It's videotaped. Our mayor said that a resident told him about milk and cookies, and he immediately took this owner, Lance Thompson, to meet with 2 Rollingwood City Council members, and then he took them to the ladies club, the Rollingwood Ladies Club, and that he brought them to you. And you had already gone over there and eaten February 13th, 2020, to hear his presentation where he said he had 75,000 sales and $1 million in revenue. And at the last RCDC meeting, it was reported that the owner had 1.5 million in sales at the 35th Street location. Now, I sent you a memo yesterday, and I know you haven't had time to read it, but it talks about the parking, the traffic, and the importance of an RFP. Yep. The idea is, if we have 1.5 million in sales, and you divide it by $15, it's an easy division there.
Yep.
That comes out to 100,000 sales. 70% of that is car traffic. So 70,000 sales are car traffic. That's 70,000 cars in a year pulling into Rollingwood Drive entrance, parking, buying a milk and cookie. Actually, it's a full meal menu, and then exiting again. So that's driving in once, 70,000 in a year, driving out again. That's 140,000 times at that one entry drive on Rollingwood Drive. And that's your numbers. You've reported that, not me. That's the numbers that we're just reporting at the April 8th RCDC meeting.
Yep.
The idea that comes out to, if you divide it by 365, that comes out to 384 cars a day, every day of the year. And they're not open on Christmas, of course, but I divide it by 365. Now, when they pull in the entryway to the park, 60 feet, they make a sharp left and the only parking right there. About 20 cars can park in there if it's real tight. But now you're crossing the hiking trail, the place where kids ride bikes, people push baby strollers. You pull into a busy park, 20 spaces are there. You have to park. There may be people in that park right now, and you get out of your car and walk across the entry drive to buy a cup of coffee, walk back across the entry drive into this little park, dealing with cars pulling out. It is a mess. You do not have, and you could never have, enough parking space to accommodate the business milk and cookies. And I am not against this business. I've been over there many times, well over 15 times. I've purchased their food. I've taken pictures of people backing cars in and out in a commercial zone on busy 35th Street. I see people parking on side streets and walking in to milk and cookies on 35th Street. You are creating a parking nightmare on Rollingwood Drive and in the park, and you don't have space for it. It's not there. There simply is not enough spaces to accommodate this business. They did 1.5 million last year in sales. That's 100,000 sales. Do the math. It's simple math. You cannot accommodate this business in Rollingwood Park. It's that simple. It's not safe. Kids walk from the pool down Rollingwood Drive, carrying towels, wet from swimming, riding bikes. Do you really want 384 cars a day pulling in and out of that driveway right in front of my neighbor's house? This is absolutely a disaster. I can't believe you won't look at the numbers. I sent you a memo yesterday, and I appreciate
Yep, I did read through it.
sending it to you. If you disagree with anything in there, please call me. You have my phone number. Those are the actual numbers. It's shocking to see 140,000 cars driving in and driving out. That's the fact. That's the number. It's not a made up number. It's not an exaggeration. But I remember looking at the February 13th, 2020 meeting when a member of the RCDC said parking was not an issue. It is an issue. And for a governmental entity like the city of Rollingwood to not go out with an RFP and have clear guidelines on, we're not going to disrupt traffic. We're not going to disrupt, we're going to have parking. We're going to use the park for its intended use, specific guidelines, safety of children, and take bids from all businesses and not discriminate against local businesses. There's a cookie company 3 minutes from my house. They didn't get the bid. What about a minority-owned business? Are you going to discriminate racially against a minority-owned business and not let them even submit a bid?
Yeah. That's over the 3 minutes.
I apologize for taking 3 minutes. This really needs to have an RFP. That's the only recommendation you should vote on today, to tell the city council to go out with an RFP. Thank you for giving me the time.
All right,
Hey,
thanks.
Barry.
Yeah.
Barry, can I just make a clarification there on what Mr. Butler was saying in that, and it was in the memo? So the numbers that were thrown out and discussed in that RCDC meeting were actual information from Milk and Cookies about sales. There was no information put out about walk-ups, drive-ups, people biking up. So I want that to be on the record and clear. Those numbers and math that are being done are from Mr. Butler, which is fine. He's obviously allowed to do that as a citizen and share his feedback with us. The other thing I want to make clear with Amber and Ashley, with their input, is RCDC required to do RFPs? And let's explain that to us.
You would not be required to do an RFP.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, a business can come to an economic development corporation and work with them. Happens all the time.
Thank you, Amber.
Okay, we have two more items, two more people, actually. Well, we have more. Amber, I want to give everyone the chance, hold on one second. I want to give everyone the chance to speak, but we're now, I mean, to Pat's point earlier, right? I'm not sure how to deal with, I guess, the ongoing questions that keep happening. So
if you want to offer, just ask everybody that they keep their comments short. That way everybody has a chance to speak. But ask them to strictly adhere to limit.
Okay.
Barry, we've got a motion and public discussion was number 3. This is number 4. So I think, having the public discussion on our motion for our meeting, the members should be speaking and not the public. And I think we need to get on with the vote, and we'll be here all day and all night if you continue this way. And I tell you right now, I won't be here.
it's a fair point. I'm trying to navigate this a little bit, Pat, because we have two things to try. I'm cramming into one. Okay, so as it is, right, we've had, just thinking out here, guys, let me just talk through this. We have, Pat, your motion is to essentially just end all RCDC discussion regarding milk and cookies. That would mean that we would, from a practical standpoint, no longer engage them or no longer look for solutions. Is that
Barry, the motion is to not approve the revised letter of intent for ground lease in the park.
So would we as RCDC be allowed to look at other ways to revise the letter of intent, or to look at, I mean, there was a
No,
time,
we need to get it
It
up or
depends
down.
on how the vote falls out.
I'm saying if it didn't, I know, I'm just trying to understand with Pat's motion, if it's a no vote, then as RCDC, this dies, or do we have the ability to keep going? Or like, I'm trying to speak from a practical standpoint of what is the.
Yeah, I don't know what the motion is either, to be.
Are we killing this particular letter of intent for a new one to come along, or are we, like, that's what I'm asking.
Can I ask a question? Why don't we have Pat withdraw his motion and resubmit a motion that we can understand? Because I frankly don't understand what the motion is.
Okay, here's withdraw the motion. Here's the new motion. My motion is to terminate all discussion on this item, period. And if they want to come back and talk to the city council, or if they want to go to the central business district, that's their choice. But we shouldn't be discussing any commercialization of the park, period. This is the wrong spot for this business. You can see the people. If you want it in your front yard, would you be voting for it? And that's what
I thought we were
you're
talking about the motion.
motion.
Now you're just arguing what your opinion is, not what the motion is. I'd like to know what the
Well,
motion
the motion is to terminate discussion. Can you understand that?
Yeah, if that's it.
Okay, let's go. And you can stay there all night if you want to.
I second the motion.
Okay, let's then fine, we can bring it to a vote. I would vote no to, well, I would vote to continue discussion. So I guess that is a no against the motion. I would like to continue discussion with milk and cookies. So no.
I too would vote to continue the discussion. Bobby Hempfling.
Pat Sheehan votes to stop discussion.
I vote to stop the motion discussion.
I would vote to continue the discussion.
Emily Dorn votes to continue the discussion.
I vote against stopping discussion, and because I'm in favor of continuing discussion.
Motion fails.
Okay.
Another motion.
I would quite honestly, yeah, no, I don't have any other motion, but I would like to move on past item number 4 at this point, since we've I don't know what benefit we're going to have at this point discussing the terms sheet at this. I think it's something that now that motion failed, we would need to, I think, reconvene, listen to, I think Laura has one more thing of feedback, and then from there continue this discussion in the next meeting. But I don't think we're at a point, given what just happened, to get I think we're at there's a lot of details to still work through with the letter of intent. So I don't think we're at a point to present that, quite honestly, Emily.
Yeah, and Barry, it's David. If I can, I have a few thoughts on that. I mean, it's you know, there's, I mean, I kind of get into the myth out there versus the reality out there, and you know, I think there is. I want to focus on the concerns that people have raised that I think merit a harder look. I think you know, we ought to be looking at traffic, and you know, it's my understanding that there, you know, I know as RCDC we've talked about doing a overall real scientific professional traffic study. I'm not entirely sure about whether or not there's any milk and cookie specific transportation professional transportation studies kind of in the queue or not. I think one other thing that is going to help is actually, it's my understanding that there's maybe some renderings that are being done of what milk and cookies would look like in place, actually in the park, in place, as well as I think, you know, I've certainly talked about the idea of basically staking out the location, or putting, or, you know, kind of using stakes or something to show exactly where the location, the footprint would be in the park. And you know, I think when you start, you know, talking about actual things and people can kind of see what they would look like, it starts, dispelling some things and putting some things on the,
Yep.
allows people to look at.
Exactly right. So Dave, just because we're way over on this, and I know you're to be the first person I've cut off today, but that's why exactly my point of where I'd rather like for us to not continue with 4 at the moment and move on to the next item.
And that's why I was going to say, Barry, I think this illustrates, and I will say this and agree with you. I think there's more work to be done. So I think we could terminate this and keep on doing some work and take it up again in the future. So thanks.
Yep. All right. So Amber, can we move to item, Emily? Sorry, do you have any comments on that?
No.
All right. Can we move to number 5? That's discussion and possible action regarding RCDC station and traffic and pedestrian safety and parking plan for the park and surrounding areas.
Yes.
So, okay, great. So looking through the packet as we kind of worked through that item, I didn't see really, is this us doing an RFP on what it would take to get the proposal going, I think, or is it us voting on actually funding the proposal? Is it similar to what we did with the data company that talked about the park traffic? Can't remember the name of them.
Right. It would be to fund a traffic study, traffic and pedestrian safety and parking plan for the park and the surrounding area.
Right. I guess what I'm saying is I don't see a vendor or cost in the packet for that.
Well, staff's not gonna get a proposal unless that's something that RCDC
Okay.
is not interested in.
So this is us voting to move forward with the
Right.
first step. Got it.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is something regardless of what we do with anything in with Milk and Cookies or any other entity in the park, I think is very needed both from a commercial standpoint and also just safety. So I would like to make a motion on us approve RCDC's participation in a traffic and pedestrian safety plan for the park and surrounding areas.
I second the motion. That's Emily Doran.
Can I ask a procedural question of Amber and Ashley? So basically, if we vote in favor, so with the next step, if the RCDC wants to pursue this, will the next step being the city put out an RFP or request for bids?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And there will be some procedural steps to make this an official project of RCDC that we'll have to go through a couple of readings by the city council and things like that.
But this gets us going.
But that can run in tandem with the RFP process.
Okay.
So we have a motion and a second. Can we vote? Oh.
Emily Doran in favor?
Thank you, Kevin. I'm in favor of going forward with it.
Barry O'Cambry, aye.
David Smith, I'm in favor. Aye.
Pat Sheehan.
And we got Rebecca and Bobby left.
Rebecca
Bobby
Johnson. Aye.
Excuse me. Bobby Hempfling, aye.
Okay, so we have a motion to get that going. We've done something today. That's a positive. All right. The next item up, and I believe we have someone speaking to this, is the discussion of possible action to recommend capital improvement project for the dog park to be constructed as proposed in the master park plan dated April 2019. And I believe that is the, do we have anyone here to speak to that other than what was in the packet?
Barry, I believe that Nicole Morisi was going to be here, and they were not ready to speak on this item.
Okay.
So I think they'd like to further do some more work on it and bring it back at another time.
Okay, that's totally fine. So, I mean, I think our next meeting will be, mid-July. So I'd like for them to get this over to us I mean, it's up to them, their timing, but I think next meeting would be very beneficial if they could get that over to us. So we will not be discussing that item. That moves us on to the financials then. Amber, who's going through the financials? Typically,
I'm happy to do that.
okay.
Unless Pat or Bobby would like to.
Go ahead.
Okay. You have $425,000. And yeah.
Point of order. The financials are mislabeled.
What's that?
It says City of Rollingwood. It should say the Rollingwood RCDC.
Let me double check. We may have the wrong ones in there. We just switched to a new financial.
Yeah, it has us. It has our accounting, like our department number on there, Pat. The 500 RCDC. It's the heading is saying the City of Rollingwood balance sheet.
It's still wrong.
I know that's your wheelhouse. I was just pointing out that was there. I'm not going to pretend to understand the balance sheet, Pat.
We will look at it and make the naming corrections.
Yep.
And y'all haven't really spent any money this year. You've collected 100% of your budgeted sales taxes to date. We're at 66% of the way through the fiscal year, but we did budget very conservatively on sales tax collections because of COVID, and we weren't sure what this year was going to look like.
I guess, I mean, instead of you reading line by line, the only question I have actually, Amber, is regarding on page 53. There's a few items here we have allocated. Well, I just want to get through this understanding. So on the budget balance, it's a negative $181,717. So we have underspent by $181,000 based off our budget, correct?
Correct.
So when we look at, this is just more of a line of sight into the next couple items regarding the park project and the traffic study. That's kind of where we had allocated funds. These are funds that are available for us to use for those types of projects. So I just wanted to point that out to us as we look to like what is the main cost of these things, right?
Those funds are already budgeted. So you budget for MOPAC legal expenses, improvement project, and comprehensive plan. So you wouldn't, since they're already earmarked, you wouldn't be able to use those funds for a traffic plan, but you do have $25,000 in the bank that you could use for a traffic plan.
Okay. Sorry. Thanks for pointing that out. Okay.
And Pat and everyone, I'm just now kind of catching up and noticing what you're talking about. We just moved to a new financial software. This is the first month that you've seen the reports from Encode, our new software. And I don't believe up at the top where it says City of Rollingwood, I'm not sure we can change that. That's our entire license for our software, but you'll see over on the left where it says Fund 500, Fund 500, that would be our RCDC. So I don't think we'll be able to change that top heading. That's just for our internal use.
It's a separate legal entity.
Yes, and it's in its own fund.
Yes.
It's labeled wrong.
Any other questions?
Nope.
The next item, Barry.
Yep. So that's the discussion and possible action of approving a 2021 to 20, or action on the fiscal budget for 2021 to 2022. Amber, I guess from on this particular topic, my question would be regarding we haven't seen anything come back from like the council or anyone else of what the city projects overall from its standpoint. Like what is 2021, 2022 looking like for them? From the city as a whole versus, I know the RCDC doesn't have the same budget, but from a sales tax revenue, it looks, my understanding just from an economic standpoint is we're kind of on a upward trend. So as we look to kind of do our budget, I think where you would be safe, this is just a general comment, like splitting the difference between where we were 2 years ago and where we budgeted for this year. Now, we don't have any earmarked funds, but as we're looking at a sales tax collection and projections of what we would spend, That's my initial assumption or initial thought. We don't have anything further than that.
But Ashley, you want to walk them through? She's been doing an awesome job on the budget this year and taking the lead. So I'll let her.
Sure. And I'll mention this document was added to the packet pretty late. So if you are in the packet on the website and you don't see this document, you may have to refresh.
Okay.
These are kind of our general budget worksheets that we use for our different departments when requesting, I guess, your expenditures for the next fiscal year. You'll notice that there are, sorry, I do need to pull it up. You'll have three separate parts of this budget. You have your economic development, non-project related, and then the additional new projects. Those were the ones that were approved this year and brought into the budget. I don't believe we need, concrete numbers today.
Yep.
I think probably next meeting would be a good time to go over these.
Okay.
So just wanted y'all to take a look at, where you've had your expenditures in 2020, 21, and then kind of look at where you might want to, what you might want to budget for the next year.
And this is just from the packet standpoint, is this 52, 53, 54? Is that the ones I'm looking at?
I'm in the HTML version. Barry,
Okay.
let me pull up
Can you just project your screen then? I just want to make sure that we're looking, because this packet's changed a few times now.
I am off the cloud. It would take
Okay.
me a minute to pull it up.
That's fine.
The very last page of your PDF.
Okay.
Yes, they're Excel documents that we've thrown
Okay.
into the packet.
So page 55. Okay, that's fine. So next meeting, I'll get with y'all after this meeting and kind of just work through expectations of what we need to have for the next one, and then kind of reconvene, because I want to make sure we properly allocate funds.
Sure. And just so you're aware, need to have your budget set by your August meeting.
Yep.
To make the deadline for city council.
Yep. Noted. All right. So that is, I think, all we had to cover today.
And if the members of the commission have any questions about the budget and how it works, Ashley and I are happy to sit down with you one-on-one and walk you through everything.
Ashley, I'd like to sit down with you as the treasurer, and then Barry, once I've done that, I'll get with you.
Okay.
In the next several weeks.
That'd be very helpful.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
All right. We are through our regular agenda items. Anything else? We can move to adjourn the meeting.
I so move. We adjourn.
I
Pat
second.
Sheehan.
Aye. Bobby Hempfling.
I'm sorry, it was all breaking up. I can't tell if anyone said aye or not.
I did.
Okay.
Aye.
All right. Barry Del Cambria, aye. All right.
Rebecca.
Dave Smith, aye.
Pat
All right.
Sheehan.
All right. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Oh, never mind. We have we didn't save our next meeting. We didn't set the next meeting.
They're usually the.
Yeah, I know where they are. All right. We'll do it as normal. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.